Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, discussing how humans control the climate. The weather outside is frightful, but the temperature inside is delightful. Most of us have a magic box on the wall which allows us to control the climate inside of our house within half a degree. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees outside or minus 30 degrees outside. The magic box on the wall keeps the climate in our house perfect. It wasn't always like this, though. When I lived in Fort Collins, Colorado, I used to frequently stop at the Bingham Hill Pioneer Cemetery. This memorial at the cemetery lists the names of dozens of pioneer children who died at a young age. In November 1862, John Provost laid his baby boy to rest atop the sloping hill on his LaPorte farm. 9-month-old Bazille was the fourth of 9 children for the French-Canadian fur trapper and his Sioux wife, White Owl. 3 years later, Provost would return to the hill to bury his 10-year-old daughter, Mary. Before the days of climate-controlled houses, it was difficult keeping children healthy. This article about influenza from the 1899 Encyclopedia Britannica gives us a good clue as to what was going on. The article says that the mortality of flu is generally reckoned at about 2%, but when an extensive epidemic prevails, even this proportion is sufficient to swell the death rate largely. A death rate of 2% for flu was much higher than the death rate for COVID-19, which has only killed 0.01% of the world's population. Then the article went on. Influenza has in all times been regarded as fulfilling all the conditions of an epidemic in its sudden invasion, rapid and extensive spread, and speedy and complete disappearance. Among the chief epidemics of influenza are those of 1762, 1782, 1787, 1803, 1833, 1837, 1847, and 1889. In several of these epidemics, the disease appeared to originate in some parts of Asia and to travel westward through Europe and on to America. In some of the epidemics, influenza spread through the whole of Europe in the course of 6 weeks. Wherever it appears, the whole community suffers to a greater or less extent, irrespective of age or condition of life. It's pretty clear that in the 19th century, influenza was a very deadly disease. People would catch the virus, they'd get sick, they'd get chills, and they were unable to regulate the temperature in their home very efficiently, because they didn't have the magic box on the wall which controls the temperature. Without the ability to control the temperature in the house, many people suffering from influenza never recovered and they would die. And it appears that most people no longer understand how the magic box works. There is a huge amount of infrastructure in place which allows the magic box to control the temperature in the house. The magic box is driven by fracking, which Democrats want to ban. The magic box is also driven by coal and gas-fired power plants like this one just south of me in Colorado. Colorado has decided to shut down this very clean coal-fired power plant because they're terrified of an invisible and harmless trace gas which comes out of the smokestack. They believe that this harmless trace gas causes the climate to change. They imagine that they control the outside climate and don't understand that they're shutting down their ability to control the inside climate. In 1973, the United States did not have enough oil, and people had to line up for hours to fill up their cars with gasoline. And for decades, Democrats screamed about the fact that we were going to war over oil in the Middle East. But now, thanks to fracking, the United States is the #1 oil producer in the world, and we don't have to get our oil from the Middle East. You would think that this would make Democrats happy, but now they've reversed their position and they want to shut down the fracking, which allows us not to rely on Middle Eastern oil. Democrats are quite openly promising to take us back to the days when we're dependent on Middle Eastern oil.
I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate.
The Democrats' plan is to ban fossil fuels, which hundreds of millions of Americans depend on for our day-to-day survival. They've created the superstition about fossil fuels controlling the outside climate, while they're taking away our ability to control the climate inside our house. Saying that you're going to shut down fossil fuels and replace it with green energy is like saying you're going to cut off your legs and replace it with something better. Wind and solar energy are simply not reliable. There's lots of times when we're not getting enough sunshine, and there's lots of times when we don't get enough wind. And there's all kinds of other problems with green energy. People who are voting for this idea of shutting down fossil fuels don't understand how much danger they're creating for their future and for the future of their children and everybody else. Joe Biden saying he's going to shut down fossil fuels is insanity, and people who are supporting him in this position don't understand what's going on in the real world. The weather outside has always been frightful. It used to kill a lot of people. But the reason we're better protected now is largely because we have fossil fuels to control the climate inside of our houses. Left-wing hero Michael Moore did an excellent documentary a few months ago exposing what a scam green energy is. And Democrats want to base their future and the future of everybody else in the country on what is essentially a scam. Toto is not impressed by how foolish and gullible humans can be. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.